want to turn the channel, go ahead, fool. Turn the channel.
We've seen midgets grow. Mandada basata. I don't make this stuff up.
Warlocks are enemies of God.
A lot of people who go into prison go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay.
Science is interesting, and if you don't agree, you can f*** off.
Well, I'm not too righteous, but on the other hand, I think you're a bit of a ding-a-ling.
If you want to learn something about God, shut your mouth and listen to me for a minute.
Welcome to the AxPx podcast, Season 3, Episode 4. I am Sean DeRager. Thank you guys for listening to the show. Sorry I had to miss out last week. Trying to do this is a bit crazy, trying to schedule everybody, but I think I'll get back into the swing of things here. A couple of quick announcements. I did start a Facebook group, kind of a companion group to the AxPx podcast. It's called Skeptic with no vowels, SKPTC. This is a group I tried doing a while ago, an actual meetup in my area, and that kind of failed. But I liked the idea, and kind of as a Facebook group, I think it kind of works. I think the Armchair Philosophers too, as a Facebook group too, like broad maybe, and this kind of gets straight to the point. So I don't know. So check that out if you guys want. You can search on Facebook that way. It's the SKPTC. So we got 53 members so far, and I would love to have everyone else kind of share their stories there. And I'll try to get an actual URL. I don't know. But today, I've been wanting to catch up with this guy for quite some time. We got Rob Davis joining us today. What's up, man?
Hello.
We have been, you were almost a regular on the AxPx when we were doing it for a while, with Joey and everything. But I wanted to bring it back on just to kind of see, because as we're all on these, once we kind of discard, I guess, the organized religion in our lives and kind of move on and decide that this is the journey we're going to take, we all kind of go on these separate paths and journeys with hills and valleys or mountains and valleys or whatever. And my journey has definitely been ups and downs. And where I'm at now is definitely different than I was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I think I was pretty much ready just to shed all religion and just be pretty much atheist. However, now I'm starting to read things and kind of, I can't shake the whole Jesus thing. So I've been looking into listening to other podcasts and listening and reading some things and trying to, I guess, kind of juggle all that and kind of see what that's all about, because I like the message that Jesus gave. But the rest of the Bible, that's up for grabs. The rest of that I don't understand. But and you had started, you had a little Facebook group going on, and you've mentioned some things about you were wanting to change the name for a while, and you were trying to, I guess, discard the whole label type thing, right? Like where have you gone these past 2 years? Have you pretty much stayed this, or labels are always hard, but where do you, I guess, how do you describe yourself now?
That is a good question. I don't. It's interesting. Probably at least a year ago, I think I went back and listened to some older interviews over the past, I guess now it's almost been 6 years since I kind of walked away from the whole church thing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, definitely interesting just to revisit, these different phases that I don't know if all people go through them, but definitely people that have kind of the religious background of, you go through mm-hmm. The anger, bitterness.
It's it's a total grieving process for sure.
Yeah. I wonder if someone's actually made comparisons, because I think that would make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I at this point, it's interesting because, you brought up that group, and more as time goes on, that group, is maybe the only forum where I actually, try to process any of that stuff anymore.
Right.
In my day-to-day life, I just don't have those conversations at all.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I started working for this company almost 4 years ago, and at that point I was in a pretty bad place mentally, and I didn't want to bring up my past with really anyone that I worked with, and I've kind of established myself and got promoted, and now it's strange because no one, maybe one or two people that I work with, know anything about my church background.
Yeah,
So it's I don't know. I'm not sad about it or anything.
No.
It's just very different.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, because you were employed by a church. You were remind me if you were a pastor, correct, or a youth pastor or associate pastor. You basically made your living in at a church.
Yeah,
and that's what you went to school for.
Above.
Yeah, and that's the problem a lot of people have, especially in the church, and why people stay pastors, and why, honestly, why I think Jay Baker is still under the pastor moniker himself is because he knows nothing else, and he's even said that on his sermons and podcasts and interviews and stuff like that. It's like, what are you going to do when you shed all this time that you've built your career up in religion, and then you shed that, and what do you have left? And I think your story could be kind of a success story, and I think that's the hardest thing people in ministry have when they start having questions, is they don't want to explore too far because they don't know where they're going to go from there, and it's definitely a scary thing.
Yeah, it's being in that place where you're starting to question things, but you're getting a paycheck and you're providing for your family, and then at a certain point the cognitive dissonance becomes just too strong, and there's just no way you can I think that's why a lot of pastors, which these stories don't really get told, but a lot of pastors end up committing suicide or at least attempting it, just because they really feel like they have nowhere to turn, and they're just completely stuck, and they've got to force themselves into some mold. It's interesting. I've been recently just listening to a lot of WTF, which one of my favorite podcasts, and just listening to how actors talk about they went into acting when they were a kid or early 20s. They never went to school, and just kind of this weird similar thing of they don't have any other skills. They just pretend to be someone, and it's eerily similar to what I think a church leader, definitely not all of them, but I think most of them that I've ever known have kind of gone through that same process of just who am I?
Yeah, it's a stage persona. I mean, pastors have to put on some sort of face to go on stage in front of their congregation. They can't let everyone in, into their inner circle, because a pastor is kind of the face of the church, a face of perfection, if you will, to the congregation. Everyone looks up to them, and when that rug gets pulled out from under the congregation, churches end and split up, and more denominations are created. Yeah. but I think we can look at your story as kind of you came through it and you were successful in kind of shedding that, which is great.
Yeah, and maybe there is more hope than I think there once was.
Yeah, because
I think it. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, because you kind of went through some sort of PTSD in a sense, correct? Do you still struggle with that?
I think I did for a few years. There's definitely some residual, rarely things will come up and I'll get just a really weird feeling, or I'm almost going to have a panic attack or whatever. Yeah. But I feel going through therapy for about a year really, I guess, gave me the tools that I just didn't have up to that point. And so now it's just a lot easier just to get through almost anything. So
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I want to explore the PTSD thing further. There's someone on the skeptic group that I started up that she is dealing with that, had dealt with that. She came out of church leadership as well. So this is something I want to explore further on future shows for sure, because it's definitely something that is real. And I think a lot of people kind of brush under the rug, or they don't think, they only kind of keep PTSD more towards like military or people who've seen battle and things like that. But I feel like religion, anyone coming out of religion is going to deal with that, and any type of mental issue for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So let's put a pin in that. And I'm sure I'm going to come to you for some resources.
Cool.
When I'm building that show for sure. So, but so you're pretty much. Do you just kind of like religion in general, like you and your family? You're just kind of done with it. Do you dip your toe in from time to time? But I know for a while, especially for me, we all go through this thing, right, where you see all these stories about all these churches, and just recently with this stupid ass Starbucks thing with that jackass causing all this. It's like normally I would have jumped on that and just rode the wave of that and complained and blah 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 blah, but I just kind of ignored it this time around, and it was almost liberating to just ignore just the circus, because this stuff's always going to turn up. But do you just you're kind of just don't even pay attention anymore, or what's?
There's a couple podcasts I still listen to, like the Unbelievable podcast.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. You got to tell me a story about that.
Yeah, and so not every week. I think if the topic seems really interesting to me, then I'll go ahead and listen to it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not. It's kind of strange now, like, because my kids are now 16 and 15,
mm-hmm.
so they're they're really their own people, and they make the majority of their own decisions. We're still their parents, but we're trying to give them a lot of freedom and responsibility, and my wife she just doesn't care about the whole church religion topic at all. She never really has. She just finds it to be the most boring thing ever. So it's really like I'm kind of, if I have thoughts, then they mostly remain in my head. And, if they come out, then they come out through the Facebook group.
Right.
Or, randomly an old friend, I'll remember some conversation and we'll email back and forth. But yeah, it's just, another angle, I guess, to it would be that I'll randomly come across some local pastor, somebody involved in something. It'll sound really interesting to me. And so I'll be like, hey, we should grab coffee. We'll sit down, have a really good conversation. And then I don't have another thought about what we talked about. So it's very different when you're so caught up in something that, everything becomes urgent. And,
right.
You get this new thing and this new information and this idea or question or whatever, and you want to jump on it and chase all these rabbit trails. And, if you don't do that, then you feel like you're missing out on something. And that is just not happening at all to me anymore. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good, man. And I think I did a podcast with Joey called About Balance. And I think that was the last one that I did before I took this extended hiatus. But that's the thing. You need to learn how to balance all this stuff. I know when I told my wife I was bringing back the AxPx podcast, I saw the deer in the headlights look from her, and she started uneasily backing away, oh shit, what are we going to start this insanity again? And I told her, but I'm not that person anymore. I'm not as obsessed. I'm more interested in having kind of, cool conversations with different people I find interesting and talking, religion and philosophy and exploring things. But as far as being obsessed, I think I think everyone who goes through this, what we've gone through, has to shed that self, and part of that process is almost being obsessed. And I think it's almost a personality trait as well. And I've been listening a lot, and I brought this show up on last time, to the Liturgist podcast. It's with Michael Gungor. He was a worship leader, and he has a band called Gungor, and he took a lot of shit from fundamentalists about saying that he believes the creation story is more of a myth and that the flood didn't happen and things like that. And, you know, if you've been around these circles, you know that was, for him, that was the wrong thing to say in that circle.
Yeah.
And he even had come out to his congregation that he was leading worship and said he was supposed to speak, and he told them that he didn't know what he believed anymore. And that like caused people to leave the church and stuff. So he's been through some stuff, which is weird, because I have a kind of connection with him because I'm trying to get him on the show. We'll see what happens. But I went to Believer's Church when he was a worship leader, and I remember when I was trying to sort of find God for the first time away from my normal circle, and I was like, this is God. This worship is amazing, you know, and you feel God's presence, and to have that guy that gave that experience to me not necessarily believe anymore is kind of crazy. But
yeah.
he's even going through that. So listening to their show was almost confirmation that this, and I feel like they mention it in their podcast, but I mean, I've been through loss of, you know, my brother-in-law. We just recently lost my neighbor, and I'm seeing this grieving process, and it definitely makes sense that there are similarities with the grieving process. You have to almost obsess and analyze and overanalyze the thing that you're letting go in order to let it go. And I've been through that for sure. And I'm reading some new things about different perspectives of the Bible, kind of from like a Rob Bell perspective, I guess. And I kind of, you know, a lot of that stuff I feel is almost reaching to kind of keep a sense of spirituality in their lives, you know, and kind of the way that they're analyzing the Bible. But to me, it's super interesting. I'm reading a book called The Bible Tells Me So by Peter Enns.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it's a really good read. It's not like a Bart Ehrman, you have to like have no distractions and really digest what he's writing. Peter Enns takes almost a similar approach, but it's much more readable. I think he's still he's in the Rachel Held Evans and Rob Bell circle, if you guys. So he's still somewhat of a believer, but he approaches the Bible from a different perspective. But I like a lot of what he's saying, because I post shit every now and then on Facebook, and I'm almost just waiting for people to respond. But I think people are kind of have written me off now.
Yeah, I definitely.
You guys just let it go, and there's Sean posting random stuff again. I'm not gonna let it shake my faith. Nice try, Sean.
I've definitely experienced that with people on Facebook, where I know I'm randomly posting something that, you know, 4 or 5 years ago would have been like friendship ending and like so controversial, and now I get like silence.
Right, but hey, post a cute cat, you know. Or I posted my Wookiee slippers. 100 likes.
Yep.
Something about how the Canaanites, how the Israelites made up God's command to defeat the Canaanites. Nothing.
Yeah.
Crickets.
Yeah, I actually, this was while I was still working on staff at that Acts 29 church. But our small group that I was leading in our house, we were always trying to find like interesting, you know, lectures and stuff to go to. And Peter Enns actually, he spoke at Duke, and this was probably 2000. I bet it was 2009, and it was pretty soon after he got kicked out of Westminster, or I think it was Westminster, for, I think, denying inerrancy, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yep.
And the whole title of this talk that he gave was, "Is the Bible Ever Wrong?" And so he goes through this whole thing. I'm sitting there with a group of like I bet it was like 8 or 10 people from my small group, all like pretty evangelical people. And, you know, he ends his lecture. And so he's like, so is the Bible ever wrong? Yes. And I was like, uh-oh, this could get interesting.
How did your the group you're with respond to that? Did they just kind of write it off, or was it like the topic of conversation for the whole ride home?
I think they all kind of got used to me kind of rambling about something that was definitely not towing the line. So who knows exactly what was said, but I think they all were like pretty used to it, because that was kind of what I did in our small group, was just like, hey, I read this book and it totally calls into question the authenticity of the letters to Timothy. They're like,
I'm going to a church now, a church near my house, and I really love it. I love the people there, and I really have a lot of respect for the pastor, but I'm terrified to join their men's Bible study group.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely terrified, because what they're doing is they're going through, you know, those devotional books. Read this devotional, read the peppered verses, whatever, that they pick through the Bible to talk about this topic, and we'll all discuss it, you know, and which is not the kind of Bible study that I want to do at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been wanting to do it to kind of meet people. I guess that's really the only way you can really meet people in a church, because I feel like before church or after church, even though we have breakfast before church, you kind of meet people, but it's all kind of, I don't know, very surface level.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost been a year now, and I've still haven't joined up with the Bible study yet. I keep saying I will. But
yeah, it's an interesting dilemma that I think probably the majority of people, if they were honest, they are in the middle of it, where I think it was that liturgist podcast, the interview with David Bazan.
Oh man, that's a great interview, by the way.
He's talking about his wife was really interested in church. He just wanted to show up and have a good feeling. And, you know, he's like, well, I don't really want to go, but if you want me to go, I'll go. And then he shows up, and then he spends like the next hour just like ripping apart what was said by the pastor. And she just kind of got annoyed with him. And it was just like, man, I wonder how many people, I've got several friends who, you know, just in the past couple of years, they, you know, were pretty involved in their churches and just couldn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in the same situation where they show up and, you know, all the stuff about Jesus, they're totally on board with. And they're like, yeah, great. Like, let's go love our neighbors and let's change the city and blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, the pastor goes off on something that just makes absolutely no sense. And, you know, you just, like, I definitely couldn't do it anymore. I got to the point working for the church that, you know, I was, quote unquote, working on Sundays, and I wasn't listening to the sermons because it just wah, 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 like nothing was making any sense to me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, what I like about this church is that the pastor came from a church that was basically the pastor of it was a big kind of almost mega church here in Southern California, and the pastor had an affair and split the church, and he left. He was the youth pastor, and he left, didn't know what he was going to do, and him and some of the other people who left the church were still wanted to meet, so they would have breakfast at his house. And then after a while, he was like, well, let's just try to start a church. And they do breakfast in the morning, and anyone's welcome to have breakfast. You don't have to be a member of the church. Just show up and there's breakfast, which is really cool for the community.
Yeah.
And they meet at the local middle school. And then what he does is he'll take just a chunk out of the Bible and just read it. And mostly it's New Testament. Every now and then he'll go to Old Testament, and kind of from like a historical perspective, kind of analyze what's being read, which is great. He's still like, I feel like he's straddling the line between inerrancy of the Bible. Is that the right word? Right? Inerrancy. Yeah. And the historical perspective. But I've been meaning to have lunch with him to kind of see exactly where he's at, because some of the stuff I feel like he's giving a little bit of lip service. But he just wants, he really wants others to love one another, which is what the main issue with the church was when the pastor had an affair. There was just, it rocked the church to its core, and, that was just a mess, and he just saw how that ruined people's lives, and he's not there trying to be perfect, and he's just this really approachable guy, and so that's the reason why I've gone. He'll straddle the line. I know when their whole LGBTQ stuff's going on, when marriage equality happened nationwide, he said a few things kind of coded, not to fully say he wasn't for it, but he's said, our nation's upside down, or, everyone's understanding of the Bible is upside down. What's right is wrong. What's wrong is right. I'll say certain things like that and not fully say it. And that's when I kind of cringe in my chair a little bit and, bite my tongue. But it's hard, man. It's hard to find. For me, I'm going to keep, my wife likes going, and so it's, for me, it's more important on Sunday for me to, make sure she's happy and she likes going, and the kids really like the Sunday school and everything. So, it's not a mega church, so I can put up with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about finding where we're at, and like I've said before, like the right balance. But I wanted to ask you about you had wrote to the Unbelievable podcast, right? You had what was that story? What was that about? You were
Well, I've had this kind of question in my mind for the past, I guess, almost 6 years of, just trying to figure out like I think the majority of Christians would say that there's something, something unique, and there's something they could glean from Christianity that would be necessary for the entire world to know. And that thing should be shared with everyone, that everyone should, convert to that thing, whatever that thing is. Everyone's got different ideas of what that thing is, of some unique idea, or if you could say, the person of Jesus, or a belief, or a practice, an experience, like, communion or something. So this question in my head has just been like, what is it about Christianity that I, as an individual, should force myself into that group? And, I think when people really consider that question, they, for the most part, don't have an answer. They'll try to answer that question and come up with something. But I'm putting it really in the realm of objectivity, and saying this, whatever that thing is, it has to be something that you could, demonstrate anywhere in the world, that this thing is so important and unique and urgent and whatever, that whoever came upon this idea, whatever, would have to fall in line. And of course, like this is an impossible question. And
right. I think you posted the question on this group, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
damn.
and it definitely. I don't think there is an answer to the question. I think most Christians would agree that there's not something that is, objectively unique about Christianity. But what I think that does is it derails the conversation from the realm of fact and reality and objectivity, and it puts religion, spirituality, theology, all of that where I think it belongs, which is in the realm of subjectivity. Where it's like, I I really like going to church. Like if someone said that, if that's their thing, I like going to church. I like the experience of communion. I, prefer to drag my family out of the bed on Sunday morning and go through all that chaos.
It is chaos, man. It is.
I think
complete chaos.
If that is the way someone approaches it, to me, I have zero problem with that. I think when it becomes that people are trying, someone like a William Lane Craig or something, trying to show you, oh, this actually is objective, like something like the resurrection, like, oh, it can be proven, and we have all this evidence and all these arguments and whatever, when, the majority of scientists, philosophers, historians don't buy that, then I think there's a problem. And it's like that is great. If that is what you want to do, that's awesome. I support it. I am glad, when my wife comes to me and she says, I'm going to take this new trail to run on every day. I'm like, that's awesome. That is good for you. You go do that. I will support you. I will help you. I will help you get some new shoes, whatever you need. I'm going to help you do that. But if she comes to me and says, this is the only trail, this is the best trail, there's no other trail, everyone in the world should run on this trail, and it'll change your life, and it'll make everything better. And if you don't run on this trail, then you're a terrible person. And like putting it in that realm of like not being just a preference, not being something that you enjoy or like, or, even, with something like that, it's like, you can tell other people, man, this is great. Like I had this great experience, and, you might enjoy it as well, but there's a subtle shift from that to this is necessary, unique, objective, primary, like all these things that trying to put your preference in the realm of gravity, or the earth rotating around the sun, or like all these truly objective ideas or discoveries that we've made about the universe.
Right. Since the Bible was written, they had none of this knowledge, none of the knowledge on how the world works, how the universe is, the solar system, gravity. I mean, everything was mystical to them. God was really the only answer you could give for that stuff. But I mean, I think there still is a bigger, there's only so much we know, right? So, I mean, even with all the discoveries we have and everything, I still attribute to the bigger unknown as, possibility of God or whoever. But I don't think, and this is the thing that my wife and I always get tripped up on. I always have to tiptoe carefully around these types of subjects, but it's, but that can change with the more we discover, but who God is, what God is, I don't know. But that's the thing that Christianity does, especially when you get down to apologetics and things like that, is everything hinges on the resurrection of Jesus. If you don't believe in the resurrection, then you're not saved, and that's the one thing my wife and I always go back and forth on, because she thinks that believing the actual physical resurrection is key to the Christian faith, which I don't agree. I more look on it as the resurrection of the ideas Jesus had. How did his philosophy resonate after he died, if he died, after he died from then on in history, how it affected history, I think is more of a resurrection on how I understand it. But these apologetics they always, like the Unbelievable podcast. What's the host's name of that podcast? Justin Brierly, right? Yeah. And he more puts things from apologetics where they can explain the resurrection, and of course it all boils down to faith, right? But there's no scientific evidence, no historical evidence, no true archaeological evidence about that Jesus even existed that I know of, or that he was raised, from the dead. So, but all that doesn't matter to me. I could care less if Jesus actually, rose from the grave or not. To me, it's more of his teachings of love your enemies, turn the other cheek, help the poor. That resonates with me. And if that idea was what came out of all that, great. Totally happy with that. And that's a fantastic foundation for me to have, for my kids to have. And we can go on from there. We can go on from there and, and if you want to dig in further and learn, I don't think that you have to necessarily, a foundation can be that, oh no, the resurrection's the foundation. It doesn't matter. Really, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because that's not provable, but I think, and you know what? And I don't, even in the Gospels, I think Jesus just said, follow him. It was after the fact where with Paul and things like that said, if you have to believe that Jesus Christ rose from the grave and all that stuff to be saved. That was later, 100 years after Jesus, quote unquote, rose from the grave or after his death. So,
yeah.
What do you think when you think of the God question? Do you ponder that, or is that still a question mark? How do you approach that?
I definitely have, I think for people to not have experiences in their life that are mysterious and strange and, where you look at, right now my wife is taking a biology class and she's talking about all these intricate things that happen on a molecular level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading through that and going, man, if all of that happened by chance, that's insane.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean to me that it did or did not happen by chance. So I think like I'm kind of, I guess, in this place where I still think, there's a possibility that God created everything or a God or some type of something created everything, and that thing or entity or being is present in everything. And I mean, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility or plausibility.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, I don't know. I think I'm becoming more and more of a pragmatist, where I'm like that. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm gonna go get something accomplished.
I got some work to do.
Yeah, go do my job.
Got some
now.
bills to pay and children to feed. I don't have time to dive into these textbooks right now, but you know what? I'll put a pin in it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like once my kids are older, once I actually have time, if I care, I will be able to study all this. And I think if the burning questions are still there when I'm, in my 50s, great. I'll study it further. But I like bringing up questions. It's finding the answers. I don't have the time for right now. I got this book from Peter Enns a month ago. I'm only on chapter. It doesn't even have chapter number. I'm only on page 60.
Nice.
I read maybe 5-10 pages today. So it's 5-10 pages a week. That's where I'm at. So yeah, but there was that time though when I was really wanting to study all this and needing to have answers, and my wife pressuring me, you need to figure this out for our children.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of pressure, when you go through all this. But
yeah, totally.
But I think the healthy thing is to kind of be like, well, I'll get these answers when I get there. And
it's
nothing's
great. great for kids to hear their parents say, "I don't know." So
Right. Yeah, totally. And I say that all the time. I don't know. Well, we'll talk about it in 5 years once you can grasp the concepts. Once you had a few deeper science classes, let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
But it's cool because my daughter's getting there. She's 10, and she's starting to have questions and learn more things. And I've had some cool conversations with her, so I'm excited. I think my wife's terrified once they start asking deep questions. But I find it fascinating. I love. It's like at that age, that's the time. I mean, I wish I would have had the time and drive at that age to really learn and study things. I'm like, when I was 20, I wish I had the drive to learn the stuff. I mean, now that I have wife and kids, it's so hard to really study the stuff. I wish I would have gone through this when I was younger, I guess.
I mean, I think it's like, looking back now, this is something that I feel like I'm really thankful for, that when our kids were younger, despite, us being in a pretty conservative environment, theologically or whatever, but like, I really feel like we taught our kids critical thinking from as early as I can remember. And I really think that is, whatever myth people want to hold on to, that's fine. But, to help them get through the day. But I think, teaching critical thinking and questioning and, argumentation and reasoning and all those things, I think, are just so much more important than whatever philosophy or, lifestyle or worldview someone holds on to. I think if they learn all those other tools, I think that's going to stay with them their entire lives. It can backfire a lot of ways as a parent. Because you teach your kids to question everything, and then you say one statement to them, and then it becomes a debate. It's like, oh my God. Just say, okay. And so I think it's super important. I think it'll help them their entire lives. So,
yeah. Do you? I think it's the one thing that we, you and I both are on the same page. The one thing that pisses both of us off with religion is the organized religion aspect, right? The fundamentalist stuff that gets posted out there. I mean, it seems to be the one thing that always, like, not anymore. I mean, I'm not all militaristic about it, but just the depths that the fundamentalist understanding of Christianity goes, especially with like the whole Starbucks thing, and even with these it's like I don't even really pay attention too much anymore, but who is that guy, Ferguson? Anyway, do you still get pissed off when you see stuff, or it seems like if you do, you'll just post it to this page and be done with it and move on, right? That's
right.
I think for me, it's when I see the church, or the quotes in quotes, the church, or any religion for that matter, trying to control its population and trying to, control the people, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that gets under my skin.
Yeah, and it's really like, I mean, I guess we probably all do this to some degree, but I've probably insulated myself from a lot of just crazy. And I think there's like this approach towards social media that I used to buy into, where it was like, oh, this is just a free exchange of ideas and blah, 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 blah. But after a while, it's like, you know what? I turn on Facebook because I genuinely get excited when I see friends and family doing fun things.
Yeah.
And the kids are growing up and like that kind of stuff. Like I'm really happy for people and I like seeing it. I like knowing what's going on in people's lives or even, really difficult things like, somebody died or like, whatever, all those things. Like I want to know what's going on in people's lives. All the other crap, like I don't feel like I have to obligate myself to open myself up to that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like setting boundaries for yourself with, like an abusive spouse. Like, okay, the best thing in that situation is to leave that relationship. It's, it's good for you. It's good for them to be put in a place where they got to, figure out what was causing this problem and work on it. So, I don't feel guilty or whatever for blocking the majority of people on Facebook that are just posting just ridiculousness. So I used to feel like, I think it's like a subtle Christian thing in certain environments where you're like, well, I have to love everyone. I have to listen to everyone. I have to.
You can love everyone, don't have to listen to everyone.
Right.
And I think I had to learn that as well. Like I would kind of, it's fine. Like I said, I think half the people have blocked most of my stuff. Half the friends on Facebook, all the more of the fundamentalist. I hate using the term evangelical now that I've watched that Rob Bell video. Did you see that about evangelical? Because the word evangelical means literally to spread the good news.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's been kind of turned into this crazy, the crazy fundamentalist right-wingers are now called evangelicals, which is totally not even true. I mean, there's the evangelical Lutherans and they're totally gay affirming. So, it's uphill battle, I guess, for people to take back evangelical. But I think half of them don't even listen to my stuff anymore. But I post a lot less.
It's similar to like the word atheist, which is this word that, I've considered over the past 6 years and, what does it mean and how do different people use it? And, depending on who I'm talking to, like it's the word that makes the most sense, but it has like all this baggage.
Yeah.
So
that's been taken over by the Richard Dawkins,
Right.
Lawrence Krauss crowd, the militant atheists trying to take everyone away from their religion.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me started on them. I used to, that was the thing though, like when I was going through everything, I read a lot of their stuff and listened to a lot of their stuff, but, I'm more just kind of, just chill out, everybody. It's funny because both sides have their fundamentalists in a way.
Well, I think what's sad about that whole thing is that, talking about the whole grieving process thing, like you go through this phase that is, this anger and frustration and confusion. And so you're kind of defensively reacting and, that whole thing. But that is a phase in this entire process. And so many people have latched on to the earliest phase of, quote unquote atheism. And really, I know at least a few people that just have not moved past it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to me that an entire, I guess, movement has been built upon like a reaction and an unhealthy, maybe it's healthy for a period of time, but at a certain point, you got to move on and you got to grow up and you got to, actually deal with your life.
Yeah.
So
I think what really put the cap on it for me is when I saw that Richard Dawkins, Lawrence Krauss, quote unquote documentary.
Yeah.
The Unbelievers, which was just a puff what's the word? What am I looking for?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was terrible.
Preaching to the atheist choir.
Right.
Propaganda.
Yeah.
It's a propaganda. It's an atheist propaganda piece. It really had no substance to. I mean, there is substance there. There is things that I find fascinating about the way that atheists portray the world. I'm not there. I mean, I'm more. I guess I'm more agnostic, really, than anything else. But even when I say that, I get the sideways glances. And then Jay Baker, he clinged on to the term Christian agnostic, which I used that for a bit, and I was like, I heard him use it, and I was like, well, I'm not going to use that anymore. But labels are labels, whatever. Whatever. It's but I think limiting yourself, to a label is almost giving up. It's not. I think being open to new things, like scientists are open to new information. They're open to proving themselves wrong on a certain level. And when you stop doing that and if you stay in one spot, you're limiting yourself, I think, to growth. And I think that to be a balanced human being, I think you need to be more open and to new ideas and proving your set ways wrong. I'm always looking to, that's an interesting idea that you're talking about. Well, it's when I have a chance, I guess, look into it further, and we'll see if I, change my view on this or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good, healthy thing to be, is not stopping, I guess, which people on both sides just stop. The fundamentalist Christian says, oh, the Bible is 100% God breathed. Whatever it says in this book, I will do. Oh, wait, I'm not going to go stone this person. I'm not going to, well, I'll yeah.
Right.
You can go down a rabbit hole here, but they stop and they explain things away, and I feel like they don't grow. And if you challenge their perspective, it just turns into this, never ending seesaw, just back and forth, which I avoid the back and forth. There's a lot of the times if people keep going, challenging something that I say or whatever, it's just, you just gotta, I guess the grown-up thing to do is just walk away from the conversation, because you're both not going to persuade each other.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things that I've seen is over the past 5 or 6 years, like at least a few of my friends have over time become more and more fundamentalist, conservative, and really debating and arguing. And then, you wait about a year, and then they've left the church, they're an atheist. And so I think like with some people, I don't know if anyone's ever actually studied this, but at least some people that I've known, like I kind of expect, like when someone starts like kind of going off the rails and just wanting to debate you like crazy, like just, back off, give them 6 months to a year, and they're going to be in the same place that you are.
Right. Yeah. But I think when people are going through that, I think they're searching themselves. And they're internalizing it, and they're kind of, you see it with people, and the most anti-gay, politicians and pastors and things like that. You find out a year later they were actually struggling with struggle is the wrong word to use. Homosexual tendencies. Homosexual is the wrong word to use. Even I got called out by a listener a while ago. Gay tendencies themselves, and
yeah, it's like
you just never know what they're going through.
Pete Rollins talks about this, where I don't know if he's still considering doing it, but having like an altar call like type event to have like invite all these pastors together in one room, and then have an altar call and have them all come up and admit that they have doubts. And just
is he gonna have some nice soothing music, manipulative music playing in the background?
Just connecting it to that idea, like everyone's pretending, and it's the people who think like everything's comfortable and safe and, you know, nothing's going on behind the scenes, and, you know, my pastor's not, you know, actually gay and just hiding it, and like all that stuff, like when you really like I've tried to walk into those type of situations more recently and just be like, man, all of these people are faking it. They're all faking it. And
Hey, brother.
like,
Praying for you, brother.
there's doubt. There's like probably some really dark, scary things going on behind the scenes. And, you know, I wish more people could just get to the place where they're able to just admit that rather than just keep faking it, pretending that. Yeah,
I think it'd be healthier, man. I feel like now. I mean, now that I'm very much open with who I am and you know the doubts and struggles that I go through, the questions I have. I mean, I'm not out forcing it on anyone. But if we get in a conversation, I'm going to be frank about where I'm coming from as far as my, you know, religious hangups go or whatever. And I feel like that's a healthier way to approach things as opposed to trying to be this glossy, you know, packaged product. If like I said, the things that drew me to this church that I'm going to right now is the kind of openness that they have. I don't feel that I'm being played to stay there. You know, how these mega churches will have the greeters and all this stuff, and you know, they kind of go out of their way to make it seem like this amazing thing. Like, no, there's real people, I think, in the congregation, and there's they're very open about that. Open about, you know, whenever someone in the congregation has passed away, it's, you know, the congregation mourns, but it's just different. I think this church that I'm going to is different, and it's operating from a place of complete openness and honesty to an extent. And I think it's the first church I've been to in a while that has done that, where I don't feel it's all just a show. So, yeah, I wish more churches were like that. I think more people would go, especially people like us.
Right.
But that's the thing. Like, I wish there was something that I could attend, that I could bring up these tough questions. And right now, I think the only place people like us have when we get the itch to talk about something is social media or something, or trying to track one person down and get your schedules to match up so you can have some coffee. You know, it's because the organized churches won't welcome that. And I guarantee you, even if I stopped my pastor as he's talking and had a question, I would be shut down, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah, and that, we definitely don't have to talk about this very much, but that just reminds me, you know, you mentioned that you had started this group where you lived of, you know, I guess a skeptic group, and it didn't really work out.
It was a total failure.
And I don't know if you remember this, but I started kind of I think a similar thing here in North Carolina that, you know, we went for a few months, and what I was trying to do was bring together skeptics like across the board. So it would be, you know, some pretty hardcore atheists, and then some agnostic people, some Christians, so I think like one Buddhist person showed up one time, and like really just trying to, like, let's focus on like critical thinking and questioning and doubting and that kind of thing, rather than the answers. And I think a few times that we met, it was pretty cool, and it was, you know, we had a good time and had really good conversations. But, you know, every other week it'd be like 2 people, and then like the next week there'd be like 15 to 20 people depending on who was speaking. One time there was like 40 people that came in, and like, and then what I figured out is that what one person thinks they mean by skeptic is very different than some other people that have very clear ideas about what their agenda is and what they want to talk about and what everyone else should be doing. And let's, go feed the homeless and whatever it is, which, I mean, obviously a great thing, but like, it seemed like building a group on questions was just impossible. So
it's tough. Yeah. It's tough because, everyone has, I guess, their own agenda, but that's where I think that's why people segregate themselves to different religions. It's whatever, wherever they have landed, they want to be with other like-minded people. And that's why there's so many denominations, and it's just really tough. And for someone like me, it's I'm not someone who settles. So I remember I got called out for being a church hopper back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that was a bad thing. You need to pick a group, pick a church. Don't be one of these wishy-washy church hoppers.
Yeah,
I told him to fuck off. It's like, different groups of my friends go to different churches. So I'm gonna go check out each of the churches, whatever.
I really think you kind of already said it, but social media, the internet, groups, texting, chatting, and I was gonna bring up another example, but just all of these things, podcasts. That's
right.
my other example. I really think that is, in the world that we live in, that's going to be the primary way that people figure out what they think about spirituality and theology and philosophy. They're not, for the most part, most people are not going to show up to some event. Obviously those things are still happening, but the people on the fringes, they're just not going to, someone like me, I'm not going to show up at a church. I'm probably not going to go attend some lecture. I'm not going to, I've got a lot of other things to do. It's not, nearly as important to me as it used to be. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of people are like that. And I think the people in charge and control of creating spaces for those types of conversations to happen, I think they need to embrace and accept that and figure out a way to work around it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that, how that works, but
neither do I. We're all in this together. Cool, man. Well, thanks for chatting with me about this stuff.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if he's stuck on it. We're talking. I'm like, what am I going to call this episode? I have no idea. But next week, we're going to be piggybacking off of this topic. I'm going to be talking to Bob McDonald. He is trying to start up a thing called the Gnostic Church of Dharma and Virtue. And it's kind of the same thing. He's trying to start up something with these like-minded people. He was a part of a think tank a few years back, a think tank that was in line with the LaVeyan Satanists, and he had told me that all that ended disastrously, and then he's a few years later starting this up. So we're going to talk to him. I'm excited to kind of chat with him about his journey and this thing called the Gnostic Church of Dharma and Virtue. It's on Facebook. Look it up. You can like the page. Gnostic with a G, everybody. Gnostic. Check it out, and I love the logos he's using for it. So we'll see what happens with there. And make sure you check out the Skeptic group SKPTC. Joey was actually telling me I should change the podcast to that, and I'm like, nah, it's okay. I don't want to be late. Like the Skeptic comes with so many labels as far as a podcast goes. I was like, it's not going to work.
True.
But a Facebook group, I think, makes sense. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what works out. So drop us a line there. You can always go to theaxpx.com as well to find all the old podcasts. and you can contact me via email through there. And then I'm on Twitter at the AxPx. Rob, is the Facebook group you're talking about, is that closed for new members? But what's going on with that?
It is not closed. I mean, it's by invite only, so it's a private group. If someone wanted to join the group, I guess they could message me. If someone, I'm very protective of the group, so we've had to kick a few people out because, like I was saying, they're the type of people that have an agenda, and I don't feel like anyone in there has an agenda. So if you have an agenda, please don't ask to be in the group. And if it comes out, then I will kick you out. So,
yeah, I'm sure I'll be jumping into that with my group here. We'll see. The whole Facebook group thing is new to me, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out. But so far it's been good. Like if you join the Skeptic group, give us your story, which everyone has a story, and it's been awesome. I've had some really great stories posted there, and I want to thank all of you if you're listening. If you've posted there, thank you so much for being so open and honest. And that's it's Facebook's tough, and there's a bunch of people trying to offer safe alternatives for you to actually be yourself. And it's almost sad that we have to join Facebook groups to be ourselves in a way.
Yeah.
But that's what you got to do, and I think it's good. It's a good form of therapy. At least it's a start, and I know that there's people that listen and who are all about. I mean, you've been through therapy. I highly recommend it. And I didn't have to go through therapy, although I should have probably, and I'm sure I will be in the future. It's always open, but in a way, you need to be able to talk about the things that you're going through. You need to be able to have some people around you to be open and honest. And I think through all these, there's different ways to do it now. Technology's really grown with all these groups, and I think holding it all in is not a good way to deal with questions and doubt and things like that. You need to find a safe place to air the dirty laundry, to get it out there and in the open, and you will feel better. And that's what therapy is, really, is being able to talk honestly and openly. So, all right, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, man.
We'll talk to all of you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
We must search for what is truth.
What is truth? And what is God?
You don't really want an answer to that question.
The first duty is to the truth, whether it's scientific truth or historical truth or personal truth.
That's really what you want in life. You want to feel connected. You want to feel relevant. You want to feel like you're a participant in the goings-on of activities and events around you. That's precisely what we are, just by being alive.